Hey guys, welcome to the step-by-step budgeting tutorial of a 50-30-20 monthly budget. I wanted to create a short video and deck of steps and things you're going to need before setting up your budget. So I'm going to briefly describe the steps to successfully budgeting and then list out the documents and tools you're going to need before getting started. So the very first thing that I am going to highly recommend is using some sort of spreadsheet software. I recommend using Microsoft Excel, and that's what I'm going to use in my demo. A lot of times you can get a limited version or a free trial, but maybe your school or work has Microsoft Office installed and you can gain access to it that way. But if you don't have Microsoft Office, you can make a free Google account, which gives you access to Google Drive. And in Google Drive, you can get Google Sheets, which is very similar to Excel. A lot of the function syntax is exactly the same. And I'm going to make the Excel document that I use here as a template available for download. And you should be able to copy and paste those cells directly into Sheets and make it work for you. So the very first thing that we're going to try and do is figure what your net income is. The best way that I've found it is to look at the past year or so to figure a yearly income and then divide that out by 12 for a monthly budget. So just trying to figure out what your income is or your take-home pay is going to be on a monthly basis. This is the way that I'm going to do it moving forward. That is figuring out what a yearly is and dividing out by 12. But if you have a good grasp on what your monthly income is, so you get paid on a monthly basis, you know what your taxes and expenses are, feel free to move forward your own way. So best case scenario is you're going to have both a recent W-2 and a pay stub. This way you can get some precise information about the taxes and any expenses that you pay through your employer, such as dental or health insurance. If you don't have these documents, though, that's okay. You should know that your hourly wage or salary, what your hourly wage or salary is, and then from there you can use an income withholding calculator online to roughly figure what your tax bill is going to be. So your W-2 is going to be a good start for figuring what your federal, state, Medicare, Social Security taxes are going to be on a yearly basis. The caveat here is that you're going to have to adjust for refunds or any taxes owed. So your W-2 only shows what your taxable pay is and what was withheld. So if you know that you got a tax refund last year, or maybe you had to pay in, or you're going to have to account for that when figuring your yearly income. If you have a simple tax situation, though, or maybe you had a small refund or a really small tax bill, it may not be worth digging through the different documents. I wouldn't strictly use this, though, unless the W-2 that your employer sends you has your gross income listed out, which is basically your pay without any taxes taken out. One quick thing to note here, though, the income and wage boxes that are in this document only try to figure what your taxable income is. So, for example, contributions to a 401k, IRA, HSA would reduce your taxable income, and that's what's reflected in these boxes. So another similar approach would be to look at an individual pay stub. This is going to show what you're paying on a pay per period basis in taxes. So if you don't have your W-2, you can figure your yearly tax withholding by multiplying whatever the tax amount that you have here and then the amount of paychecks that you receive in a year. So say, for example, you get paid every other week. That would be 26 pay periods. You just multiply whatever the amount is by 26, and that's going to be your yearly withholding. Probably the most beneficial thing, though, to see from this is going to be your gross pay and then any expenses that you pay through your employer, such as like health insurance, dental, anything like that. If you don't have your W-2 from last year and would rather use a different tool for figuring out what your yearly tax bill is, you can use the IRS's withholding calculator. So even if you do have the other documents, it's a good idea to go in here every once in a while, maybe once or twice during the year, to see where you're tracking to. The tool asks you how much you've had withheld this year, and then based on your answers will tell you how much withholdings you should have in each paycheck, and then if you should be adding any additional money so that you don't owe taxes come tax season next year. Next, we're going to be using a spreadsheet to divvy out your monthly net income or take-home pay into 3 buckets: needs, wants, and savings. So again, our methodology here is going to be 50% needs, 30% wants, and then 20% savings for our top level budgets. If you need to fudge the number one way or the other for your situation, that's absolutely fine. Say, for example, you know that you have to spend 65% of your income on your needs. That's okay. Just remember that you have to reflect those changes in your wants and savings categories as well. So you're only going to have 35% of your income to split between those 2 buckets. So next, we're going to start filling in information about our recurring monthly bills and see how they stack up against our individual buckets. Something that's going to be really nice to have here is bank statements or credit card statements. Really, this is just to help you identify recurring bills and expenses. You may know off the top of your head all of your bills and roughly what they are. This is really just going to help. One thing I will say here, though, is it really helps to have 2-3 months worth of these statements when you're trying to figure out utility bills. Many times, some of your bills will fluctuate from month to month. So say, for example, your electricity bill may be a little bit higher in the summer for air conditioning, or natural gas higher in the winter for heat. It's better to pick an average number and stick with that versus trying to manually adjust it every season. Once you figure what your 3 category budget numbers are, you're going to want to fill them in and then start inputting all of your recurring monthly bills. So this is something that should mainly affect your needs category. Things like your mortgage, rent, car payment, electric bill are all going to be heading in this section. A couple of quick examples, though, of recurring want expenses would be things like your cable bill or monthly subscriptions for streaming services, gym memberships, anything like that that's lifestyle related that hands you a bill every month. So not necessarily a bill, but something that's recurring that you could go ahead and stick into your savings category would be any retirement contributions that you make. So say, for example, you contribute a set percentage of your paycheck every week to your 401k. This is something that you should put right into your savings category. I would say this is probably the most important and revealing part of the exercise of creating a budget, because this is where you'll see things that you're spending too much money on. And if you do end up finding that you're overspending on some items, that's okay. I mean, that's the entire point of the exercise, is figuring out where our problem spending areas are and then putting actions into place to correct them. So say, for example, you see that your car payment takes up about half of your needs budget. Maybe you can trade your current model in for something that's a little bit older, or look at a vehicle that's a little bit cheaper and whose monthly payments fit with your other financial goals. One of the things that you should notice in your wants category is that you're going to have some money left over after you account for your recurring bills. If you do have some consumer debt, I would suggest putting it into your wants category. So say you're trying to pay off a credit card bill or something like that, I would put it into your wants category so that you're not putting yourself even further behind. Some people like to budget for going out to eat, going to the bar, buying movies, whatever, and I don't really like that for a couple of reasons. I feel like it's too restrictive. I'd much rather just know that I have $300, for example, to do whatever I want with, versus splitting that up for $100 for going to the bar, or $50 for books, $150 for clothes. If you budget for something, you almost feel like you have to spend your money on that thing. So say you do end up spending your discretionary money on something else in a month, you're going to have to adjust your budget tracking software or to account for that thing. You're going to be less likely to follow a budget if you keep going in and have to account and provide maintenance for your software, whatever your tracking mechanism is. It should just be a really simple methodology. Being financially responsible doesn't mean you have to take the spontaneity out of things, and again, this turns people off of budgeting. So like I said previously, the best way that I've found to approaching your discretionary spend is by adding up all of your recurring wants category expenses and then subtracting them from your total wants budget, and then just having a bucket of money left over to spend on whatever you want. Having just this lump sum to know you can spend it on whatever you like is a lot easier to track and makes it simpler for you as a budgeter. Maybe one month you go out to eat a lot, the next you travel, the next you buy a bunch of video games. You're free to do whatever, just keep it simple and stay within the top level budget. Which leaves us to our last and most important step, and that is tracking in action. Having an easy way to keep track of how you're doing for your monthly budget is critical to sticking with a budget. If you can't easily look at the end of the week and see how you're doing, you're way less likely to pay attention. Even more important is being able to see when you're getting close to your budget spending limit so you don't go over, but also being able to recognize when you have overspent and then correcting it in the future. So the last thing that you are going to need is a way of tracking your expenses every month. You can use any array of personal finance software like Quicken, MoneySpire, YNAB, Banktivity, Mint. Normally, this is the easiest way to track your budget because these services and software automatically upload your bank account and credit card transactions and then assign them to a budget. But if you don't want a service to have access to your online banking account, you can just as easily track your expenses and budget through Excel or Sheets or any other spreadsheet software. The only issue here is that you have to actively note down each expense and a lot of times add it to your budget later. You can get Excel and Google Sheets on your cell phone, which makes it a little bit easier to track every time you go to the store and pay a bill, but this is just another barrier to keeping on track. So I have used 3 separate methods myself for tracking my expenses. Manually through Excel, then using Quicken, and finally landed on using Mint, which is what I use today. I highly recommend using some sort of software or service because everything's pretty much done for you. All your transactions are uploaded, it's automatically assigned to a budget, you have minimal maintenance on your part. When I was manually tracking my expenses, I always forgot to write stuff down or said I'll do it later, which made it hard for me to stick with maintaining my budget and keeping myself on track. But between the 2 software packages that I have used, Quicken and Mint, I highly recommend using Mint. Quicken is paid, but like a Lamborghini or Swiss Army knife of features and options. The problem that I have found, though, is that Quicken is glitchy, sometimes creates duplicate transactions, and is rarely updated and not very user-friendly. Mint is free, on the other hand, has a very simple setup, has a lot of features to help you stay financially fit, for example, showing you insights about your expenses, trends, and offers up additional ways to save via retirement, investments, your savings account, insurance, or credit cards. So the next video that I do will be a Mint setup tutorial on how you can take the budget that you've set up today and then establish your budget within the Mint tool. That's it.